Welcome back to Australia Overnight with Mark Pekovic and Mike Brady. This time of night, on this night every week, Andrew McLaren, who of course I'm filling in for, talks with Nic Hayes, who's Managing Director of Media Stable, not Media State. And Nic's got a very interesting topic to talk about, which, whilst it's happened in WA, has major implications, I believe, for the rest of Australia. Good evening, Nic.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Mark.
G'day, Nic.
I always say good evening. I'm sorry, Nic. Good morning.
It's all right. It's all right, Mike. Just before we even get started, I just wanted to say to you what a great influence you've had on my life, in my upbringing. Your music has been sensational. There's no doubting that. But there was one particular album cover that you had, and I don't know if you've shared that with your listeners or your listeners have raised that with you in the last 24 hours. But Invisible Man, I tell you what, it has been the greatest inspiration on my life.
I've never had a record that I've done that so many people have asked for it to be re-released, and could we just brighten up the cover. It had a fairly interesting cover, to say the least, but I was there. I know it happened.
Well, Mike, I think you were the envy of just about everywhere. You're the envy of my father, and I think and his son, and if my son ever gets hold of it, it's just one of those things that you're growing up going, that's the place I'd like to be.
It sold a lot. It went cardboard. It became a cardboard record. Nic, WA, the Senate, what on earth happened?
Mike, what we've seen here, and we talk media, this is a time that we have our little chat, and the Senate election, when we went back to the federal election where we voted in Tony Abbott and his Liberal government, at the same time you vote in half the Senate, and what has happened, and it's been well documented right around the country, 1,300 odd ballots have been lost. Ballot papers have been lost when there was a crucial recount that was going on. Now, people will say, well, 1,300 votes, what does that mean? How can that actually change up and actually determine Senate seats? Well, in this particular case, it was very, very close. But the fact that the Australian Electoral Commission has gone away and lost these ballot papers, the entire state of Western Australia has to go back to the polls and go away and vote in their Senate on the 5th of April. It's just been declared. So,
but not to mention the inconvenience, the cost, the different outcome that might result because of the dynamic. I mean, I'm astounded, but you're dead right. 1,300, in actual fact, can be quite a lot of votes. I mean, look at Clive Palmer in the federal election, and there are other people who've got in by 25, 30 votes on the recount. So it really has big implications, doesn't it?
Massive implications, but what it all comes down to is that we're still using a system that we were using back in the 1800s, back in the 1700s, when times were a piece of paper and a pencil, and identifying the kinds of people that we want to have running our country. Now, we raise the question now: should we be considering an electronic means of voting in a federal government, voting in a Prime Minister, and heavens forbid, maybe one day actually voting in a President? This is something that we've got to start thinking about, because our technology has taken us now to a level where we can actually do this. I mean, we're voting people in every single day in an electronic means. Right now, as we're listening and tuning in, people are now voting in the way that they're actually listening, and the rating system now is actually, a lot of it's done electronically.
And of course there's the reality television shows like the cooking shows and Big Brother, where people vote that way. The technology is well in existence, isn't it?
Oh, it's in existence. I'm reluctant to think that we're actually going to be looking the same way that we might vote in a president or a prime minister, the same way we kick off someone off Big Brother or vote in a future master chef. I think that's probably taking it to another level. But what we've got to start thinking about, and it's worth raising the question now, can we start thinking about voting in a government through electronic means? We do have to raise there's definitely a couple of issues that we do have to go into. The integrity, the trust, the validity of anything like this has to be at the highest level. the people have to know that this cannot be manipulated or taken to a point where the wrong government gets in. But at the moment, Mike, we're looking at the kind of donkey votes, invalid votes, people not even turning up to vote.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah. And we've got something so simple as the internet and a very highly secured internet. These days we're buying things off the internet with our credit cards.
Credit cards, yeah.
We're very secure. We've got to start thinking about this for the future.
Well, look, the issues of trust, as you mentioned, and the integrity of the system, to me, they can all be addressed within an electronic system. And also it fixes a lot of problems. Like, I've been overseas a lot in the last couple of years, and I happen to have missed a by-election, I've missed a federal election, I've missed a state election. A state election. Now, the truth is I would have really liked to have voted in those, but I wasn't in a place where I could actually go to an Australian High Commission or somewhere I could vote, and I expected to be back, so I missed the vote. Now, I haven't been fined for it because I've explained that I was overseas, but I just believe that the technology could be tightened up to the point that it could actually have trust in it. People could have trust. And it might even be a bit tighter than what we're seeing with the fiasco has happened in WA. And the cost of it, Nic, you've pointed out in your note here, $23 million.
For every single Australian that's out there in this country right now, $1 is going to have to come out of their tax system, out of their tax pockets, the money that's going in to get this to go away and vote 6 senators in. I mean, Mike, this is absolutely ridiculous. We've seen people from the Australian Electoral Commission get resign over this. This is one of the greatest fiascos in modern times as far as bringing in a government. Now, look, we've got to be really honest here. At least for every Australian here, we don't get shot at when we go to a polling booth. We don't get told that, you're going to die if you vote this particular way. We're a very fortunate country and a very lucky country where we can go away and do what we do.
Yes.
But there's a lot of things that are against this because a lot of people, the Australian Electoral Commission is and even just mentioning it on air is probably going to get me in trouble. So I'm very mindful about it.
Yes, you're not really allowed to question it, really, are you?
Well, you're not supposed to, but look, this case alone is enough to question the integrity and also to the future of this voting system because, quite frankly, we are well beyond the pieces of paper and the pencil and putting it in and the amount of votes that don't get counted because Marjorie down the road didn't put the extra number in the one little box, and in the end the vote becomes invalid. Now, her vote is just as important as anyone else's vote, but the system doesn't allow for that. The scrutineers behind the parties that are voting and putting it in, they're putting in and suggesting recounts. There's a lot of people on the polling booths that are questioning and asking people to look at who they're voting for and influencing on that path and that way. There's a lot of people and a lot of jobs at stake here. But the reality is we've got an electronic system here in place right now. There's a company in Western Australia called Serena that actually does a lot of the enterprise bargaining agreements with all the major companies around the country. And that's a significant vote. That's when they're voting on their work rights, when they're working and they're voting on all different matters within their working environment.
Yeah, big issues, really, yeah.
Well, the big issues, and they're doing it electronically. And the reason that the big companies like it, they can do it fast, they can do it accurately, they can do it fairly, and they've got a higher participation rate there. So if you've got all those things in place, you want to start questioning, well, why don't we think about it? Why don't we consider it and actually go that way? I know that a lot of the listeners here will be very not so savvy with the internet. And
yes, understandably, especially some of the older members of the community. That's true. But
there are means and ways to actually help and head down that path, because we've also got to consider the fact that regional people, maybe not so heavily connected with online means, the whole country is spending a lot of money at the moment on hooking up the whole country to to get connected, and we should be using this technology to make it worthwhile.
We sure are, especially if that you're talking about the broadband network. Hopefully, by the time they do roll it out completely, it'll still be up to date. But I assume it will be. But Nick, my prediction is that this will happen. It may not happen in the next couple of years, but to me, it's so logical. And as people become more and more computer savvy and the new generation come through, the younger generation, it has to be the way of doing it, because with smart phones, which the next generation are going to be extraordinary, they'll be so simple, so fast, and computers, I mean, really it's going to be a fail-proof system rather than a system that has the potential for failure, which has been proved in WA.
Look, if we can do it right, if we can use the technology, still use the Australian Electoral Commission to go away and do it, we need a body there that is beyond reproach and is officially can go away and deliver us a government, but do it fairly and do it right. And if we can do that part using our technology, we're going to get a better government. We're going to get what the people want. And for those that might not be so technologically advanced, well, we will. There are other means. You can bring in other means to help and support that. But I'd rather see a higher participation rate and a more accurate rate than those and rocking up to a polling booth, getting my free sausage sizzle and going in and potentially voting in who I think might be the next government. And Labor, Liberal, Greens, whatever you, Democrats, that's showing my age. But you know, it doesn't matter who it is. It's as long as each person has that right, because it is our right for every Australian to stand up and actually vote for the party that we want to see govern this country. And
it's a right worth guarding, and as you say, and a right worth protecting, because we have that luxury that many, many countries don't have of what are largely fair elections. Just a final question, Nick. Do you know of anyone in the Australian Parliament or any individuals as an organisation that are running an agenda to try and get it trying to get it up electronically?
Look, there's a lot of talk about it at the moment, and particularly with the electronic companies, the digital companies that are out there, they've all got their own views. We're so far away at the moment, though, from it, because it is about that trust and integrity. Until we can make sure that every single vote that has been voted electronically is the right one, a correct one, it can't be manipulated, it can't be stolen, and we've seen that online. We've seen that in transactions on credit cards, how they can be credit card theft, etc. They've got to make this so secure, and the integrity of it has to be at the highest level. They still don't have that kind of technology that will be able to roll it out nationally. But I've been speaking to a few people, and a lot of companies are actually looking to go away and do this, is that it could be as far as only 7 or 12 years away, where instead of us rolling up to a polling booth, we might be just going to our home computer, going online, registering, and actually voting for the government that we want for the day.
With complete confidence. And wouldn't that be nice?
It would be nice. It would save us having to cancel the sporting arena. I mean, this government, this last Labor government, almost wanted to put it on Grand Final Day. Could you imagine people turning up on Grand Final Day? They wouldn't be able to hear Mike Brady singing out the classic.
I could be singing for one of the political parties. You never know. But
There's a few dollars in it, Mike. There's a few dollars in it.
It's interesting that it hasn't happened in America, where, of course, you know, their broadband system is much better than ours is currently. But I guess that's the way it is. It's the way it's always been done. But I don't think that's a good enough reason to not change things. It's always been done this way. I think you have to look at innovation, particularly if it leads to a better result in terms of fail-proof. I'm not talking about a better political result. I'm talking about as a fail-proof system. And of course, in America, where they have non-compulsory voting, I reckon it would have a massive outcome on the US elections, whereas we have compulsory voting here. So I think we're in a better position for it not really to affect hugely the outcome of our votes, other than to give us, as you call it, the faith and trust that it's accurate. Yeah, it's good. And tradition is the greatest hurdle to innovation, and we always like to see innovation coming in, but as long as it's doing the right thing. And I guess at the end of this conversation, Mike, is that we're a few years away from it yet,
but it won't be too far away that we will be voting electronically.
Very interesting, Nick, and lovely to talk with you. And I get over to WA a bit every now and again, and maybe catch up with you over there. But I know you're over this way a fair bit too. But lovely to speak to you, and I guess we'll speak to you this time next week. And of course, a little plug here: Director of Media Stable, which is a company that Nick is involved with. Which is a national company based in WA. Thanks, Nick. Lovely to speak to you, and thank you for your kind words about my very, very old album.
Well, Mike, I'm just going to go out and get Invisible Man out and just relive a few old memories. And just gazing upon that cover will probably do that as well.
Thank you, Nick. Nick Hayes of Media Stable.